Good morning, world. We are live again today on the Daily Huddle. It is Friday morning, the 7th of July, and we've got a fantastic conversation for you with two phenomenal guests. My guests are Paris Williams and James Williams. I'll tell you more about them, but before we start, I have to put Paris on the spot. So Paris, if you can't go to sleep and you're home, what question would you ask James as a CFO, as the wife of a CFO?
The first thing that comes to mind is, do you want to talk?
Oh my God, that's close. But all you have to do is say, honey, tell me about your workday. And you'll go right to sleep.
Hey.
Lizette, is that you? Oh, it's perfect. I love it when a plan comes together. Right on the money. Steele, Gray, Chase, good morning. Lizette, it's great to have you sitting in Bogota, Colombia. Charlotte, it's great to have you. We have a couple of questions to ask to ground ourselves in the here and now. And my first question goes to my very good friend, Chase Steele Gray. Chase, good morning.
Grand Rising, brother. Grand Rising.
Chase, tell me, what time is it and who are you going to hug today?
The time is now, and I'm definitely going to hug myself multiple times today. Definitely.
Multiple times. Brother, let's get on the phone after the show and I'll give you a virtual hug myself.
I appreciate that, sir.
Good. Welcome to the Daily Huddle, Chase. CC, you are here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Where are you and what are you grateful for?
I am right here, right now, and I'm grateful for every blessing from God.
Hallelujah.
Indeed. Welcome. Charlotte, I want to welcome you here as a guest of Paris and James. And there's a question we love to ask. The question is, how are you? And the answer is, I am how I say I am. So I'd love for you to say that. And then after you say that, tell me how you say you are. Charlotte, how are you?
I am what I say I am.
And how are you?
I am good.
You're good. You're good. It's a funny thing in life. You get to be just the way you say you are. And this morning, you're good. And it's so great to have you here. Folks, we are in for a phenomenal conversation. The question of the day is, what financial challenges do successful growing companies face? You who are listening from wherever, Haiti, Germany, Africa, right here in the great state of Georgia, right here in Metro Atlanta, you as a business owner are facing financial challenges. And yet, when you face challenges, there's a way to say them, define them, describe them in such a way that makes them accessible to you to resolve. And our guests are here today to create that space with you, the space where those challenges are not insurmountable, but they are the challenges that you feel equipped and completely capable of dealing with. My guests today are Paris Williams and James Williams. Paris is the co-founder at Next Level Financial. She's responsible for providing leadership for all aspects of operations, emphasizing growth, setting goals, and supporting clients. She provides strategic direction and vision for the company. She holds a bachelor's degree from San Francisco State University and a master's from UC Berkeley. In her free time, Paris enjoys live music, spending time with her family, and dancing. Maybe a bit of that might happen here today. James,
me.
James is the co-founder and lead CFO at Next Level Financial. He holds a Chartered Financial Analyst, that's called the CFA, one of the highest designations in the finance profession. James is passionate about helping mission-driven organizations grow, level up, and operate more efficiently. James has extensive experience in accounting, investments, real estate development, and asset management. He enjoys working out, playing drums. That's what Paris dances to.
Amen.
And family time with his wife and 3 kids. And he does that in his free time. James and Paris, it is such an honor to have you here on the Daily Huddle with us. How are you? And this question, what financial challenges do growing business owners face, and how do we deal with them? I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit about you, the company, and then dive into that question. So the floor is yours. So great to have you.
Thank you so much. We're really grateful to be here. We are new to the great state of Georgia. So we have been meeting a lot of just really amazing people here. And sharing about our work as fractional CFOs. And, that term is still kind of new. People are like, it's about 50-50 chance that somebody will know what I'm talking about when I say a fractional CFO company. And so I think it's such a wide range of different things that people do, but I say we help people with cash flow management and pipeline development. And so a lot of times people will say like, oh, cash flow management. Oh, this is great. I really need to introduce you to my neighbor. Like they have a business and it's not doing so well. It's a startup. My neighbor's been going for about 6 months and I need to introduce you to them. So I'll ask a few questions and learn a little bit more. And I usually end up referring them because honestly, a lot of the businesses, actually all of the businesses that we work with, they have past startup mode. They have built really successful businesses. And they have already kind of made it through some of the things that we go through when we have a startup. And growing businesses and successful businesses, guess what? They still face challenges, financial challenges. So that kind of leads us to the question of the day, which is, what challenges do successful and growing companies face? So these owners, they've already grown their company maybe to 2 million or 4 million in revenue, and they have a team of committed people, and they know where they want to be in 3 to 5 years. But as they grow, of course, there's new challenges, right? There's new things that come up as you grow. So especially related to finance. So that is where my husband and partner, James, and this stuff is not boring, okay?
It makes for a good bedtime story. Tell you what, though, here's what I hear. I hear you very clearly defining who your target clients might be. And what I want to make sure everyone understands is that the challenges that growing and successful businesses face are the same exact challenges that startups and solopreneurs and businesses running under that threshold of revenue face. So the lessons you're about to share today are equally applicable to your target market, as well as everyone listening. So folks, tune in, because the nuggets that are about to be dropped on you here from the not so boring field, financials.
Yeah, 100%.
It's good to laugh. So thank you, Paris. So inside that question, what do you now want to share and create with us?
Yeah, I can actually take it from here. And it's funny that you mentioned that, the bedtime story and how I started a meeting with the client yesterday. Got on the Zoom, they popped on, and I was like, "You guys ready to have some fun?"
And they said,
Yeah. So that's how we approach our work. But to get into the question and my thoughts around challenges that these growing businesses face, and to your point, all businesses face these challenges to some extent, and there's different twists at different levels. The first one is common, and Paris mentioned it earlier. This is cash flow management. As you know, we've all heard the saying that cash is king, and you can liken cash to oxygen, right? Like, I haven't hiked up any of the tall mountains like in Colorado or any places like that. But from what I hear, the oxygen is thinner, and so the thinner the oxygen, the thinner the cash, the harder it is for everything else. And so what typically happens with growing businesses is, things are happening really fast. New businesses coming in, new employees are coming in. There's an abundance of activity, and the business owner or the management team just sort of lose sight of cash. If you've ever been in a situation where you haven't checked your bank account in a while, it's been a couple of weeks or a week, sometimes even a couple of days, and you go back to it and you get that little feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, you thought it was much higher than what is actually showing up. Well, that is a challenge for across the board for most businesses. And particularly with growing businesses and when things are moving fast, we lose track of that. And so, what I like to advise and what I do advise our clients is keep looking at make a habit of looking at your bank account. You need to have a feel for the flow of cash coming in and cash going out. And if you can consistently do that, you can be able to detect earlier if there are issues with your cash situation. One of the tools that I use is there's a tool called Cash Flow Tool, and it helps me and helps our clients to be able to look at sort of inflows and outflows of cash over a couple of week time period. And so the easiest way to do that is just look at what your cash balance is on a weekly basis, call it, and look at whatever you have in your AP, whatever you have to pay people, and look at what you are expecting to come in, and sort of just bring those two together, and it'll help you to see what the flow is and what your expectation is for cash. And that could be, and you also want to include payroll into that picture. So the key is just staying in touch and staying in tune. Another sort of trick on that front is payment terms. Like when you're signing up a new deal, right off the bat, tell your client or your customer that how we bill is we take a deposit on all work before the work is completed, or we get paid in advance. And so what that does is that keeps the cash flowing right through your business. What happens with growing businesses and business with a lot of activity, they're moving and shaking, and clients and customers are paying them on time. They're paying them 30 days later or even longer. And you can't really it's hard to grow a business when the cash flow is lagging the work that you're doing. So upfront, have your customers pay you in advance, pay you a deposit. It's the easiest way. And sometimes you're not always able to do that. and we recognize that. But the faster you can get your customers to contractually pay you, the better, and you'll be able to grow from that. Those are some key strategies as far as your daily cash or your sort of consistent cash. And so here's the thing that we all know, but not always put into practice: having a cash reserve, right? So what we tell our clients is put 10% of your revenue away in a cash reserve for the rainy day that comes, or for the opportunity that's going to come, and so that you're positioned to be able to take advantage of it. So put your cash away, and that's roughly about two months of operating expenses. That's the minimum amount that we tell our clients to put away. And that will help you, whether times are good or times are bad, help you to withstand any shocks that happens or any opportunities that come through. And here's one that's important, and this is, people frequently get tripped up on this, and this is the tax man. We have to put cash aside for the tax man, because he's coming. And I sometimes say, like, hey, just think of it like this is not necessarily your income. You have to put this money aside, or your cash. So putting cash aside on a monthly basis, away, that you have as a tax reserve, will help you, so that at the end of the year or the next April, whatever it is, you're not going to have an issue with paying them. So that's cash, the cash management. The next challenge for growing businesses is growing profitably. So we work with some businesses that have really good growth trajectories, and new business coming in. They can't service all the business that they have. And so the first thing that they do is they start hiring people, which makes sense and it's great. But you have to do it thoughtfully, because what ends up happening is, as you bringing on new business and you're bringing on new work, you bring on the new people, and that then sort of drives down your profitability, which is normal. But we need to just make sure that you're keeping that in perspective. And so the rule of thumb that I give people is, in general, if you can keep your net profit margin at least 10%, you're in a pretty good place. So if your net profit margins are above 10%, you probably have room to hire people, and it can help you to grow your business. But if you're below that, or you're getting really close down, you really just need to think about it and really consider, are there other ways to be able to grow our business, to service more clients or customers? Can we raise our prices? That's a frequent question that I have with my clients. Like, maybe you're not charging enough. And I have a client that she's just growing like crazy. But the prices that are being charged is not commensurate with the value that is being provided. So growing your prices to be able to support your growth is important, and your profitability is important, and that will allow you to bring on more people and more staff. So just looking at making sure that you're growing in a responsible way, or a sustainable way, I should say, to keep the business going is important. I have a saying where I say, too much revenue, not enough profit, which doesn't sound like it makes sense. But you always need profit. And maybe there's a CFO joke in there somewhere, but profit is important. So let's grow sustainably. The next one, and this will be the last one, and then we can kind of open it up. The last one is about is forecasting. So having a view of the future, understanding like how what we're doing today is going to impact the future. And in business, as we know, things don't always turn on a dime. So to the extent that we can look out in the future and we can make certain decisions today that we see are going to impact the future for the good is a great thing. And conversely, if we're doing forecasting, we're also in a better position to be able to see like, oh, in 6 months, it looks like I'm going to be running out of cash, or it looks like my profitability is going to go negative. You know, what can we do today? Well, how can we plan for today in order to make sure that that doesn't happen? So those are some of the questions that forecasting answers. And I'll add one more thing. The last thing is new initiatives, new products, new locations. We need to have a little bit of analytical thinking about that. So what is the return on this new initiative? For example, if I'm opening up a new location, how much is it going to cost? And what do I expect that I'm going to receive in additional cash flow or additional profit from this particular venture? And that is going to, and then that will help us determine whether or not it's worth it. My rule of thumb is 50% return on your investment within 12 to 24 months. And if it doesn't meet that criteria, or if it doesn't meet the criteria that you set, then don't do it. Or if you do it and you're falling below, then you may want to abandon it. So that's how businesses grow, right? There's one initiative, a project after another. And so we just need to have a way to evaluate if those projects are going to be profitable or not. So sum it up, you know, the keys are, you know, cash flow management, very important. Keep an eye on cash. Forecasting cash is greatly important. Number two, profitable growth, smart growth. You know, revenue is great, but profit is even better. So make sure that as you're hiring people, you're bringing on people that you have the profitability to support that, so you can continue to grow sustainably. And then forecasting, let's look into our crystal ball, you know, and see, you know, what the future looks like. What should we do right now that's going to impact the future? How can we reach our goals and make the type of changes that we need to, you know, in the moment when we need to, before it actually comes our way.
Yeah, well, James, thank you for that. You know, the conclusion that I'm drawing is that running a business is not for the faint of heart. And you best not do it alone. Hire the pros to do things like cash flow management. Hire the pros to ensure that you're growing profitably. And last but not least, hire the pros to ensure that you're seeing somewhere down the line, so that the decisions you're making today are actually supporting profitable growth in a way that you can manage cash flow to sustain that growth. So awesome. Let's open it up for questions. Giovanni, welcome. Fee, welcome. It's great to have all of you here. Let's take a piece out of Mr. James and Mrs. Williams. I've got a question, James. When you talk about profitability, it's almost as if profitability is baked in. There's a school of thought that goes like this. Whenever money comes in, take your profit out first, because when your accountant or your fractional CFO says you have profit on the books, it usually is just on the books and there's no cash to represent it. So how do you create for your clients the ability to actually be profitable on paper and also be profitable cash-wise?
Yeah. So it depends on the level of the business, and I agree with the sentiment of taking profit, you know, immediately when you're receiving, you know, revenue. For smaller businesses, when the businesses get a little bit larger, it's a little bit different. But what we typically do is we're looking at gross profitability to help us to gauge profit. And what gross profitability is, it's your revenue minus any of your direct costs. So if you're a service-based business, direct costs is probably going to be people time. If you're a manufacturer, direct cost is going to be all the materials that it takes to make the widgets. And so the key driver behind profitability is that is that profit, that gross profit. And so we look at gross profit, and we like to see gross profit margins, and it depends on the business, but just generally speaking, we like to see gross profit margins 50%, around 50%. And if we can take care of that gross profit, the bottom line will work itself out. I mean, obviously we have to be responsible with all the overhead and all of that. But if you can get it there, then your expense, your cash flow should work itself out.
Awesome, awesome. Take a moment now and tell us a client story, because everything you're talking about makes perfect sense, right? And yet, my brain has a tough time grasping all of it. Could you tell us a client story, like you were there before, this is the way it was, this is what happened, and this is where they are now?
Yeah, sure. So with one of my clients, I'll tell you a forecasting story. I have a client growing, lots of new business coming in the door, small operation initially, but needing to bring on more people in order to handle the work. And at the same time, not really having the confidence or really the certainty, I guess, if you will, to bring on new people to handle the new business. Like, what is this going to do? Am I going to be able to handle this for the next, am I going to be able to sustain this level of additional costs for the next, year or years? And so when we started working with the client, we immediately worked on a forecast, and we said, okay, here's where we are revenue-wise right now. Here's where we're expecting to go, and we need to hire X people. So in this case, I think it was 2 additional people, and so we'll put that in our revenue forecast model. Our forecast model looks out 12 months. And we do what we call dynamic forecasting. So we're updating it every month. So things change, business conditions change, whether for the good or for the bad. And so putting together that initial forecast model to say, yes, we can sustain adding these additional people on into the business. And look, we go out 12 months and we're doing fine, and we're more profitable, and the business is growing, based on the assumptions and what we think are going to happen. So having that sense of clarity and helps with the trepidation or the anxiety that comes along with making business decisions. And so in this case, the business owner felt very good then about bringing on the new individuals into the business to help them to grow.
That is awesome. So a financial a fractional CFO actually buys you peace of mind with forecasting. We'll take one last question, and then I'll come back to you for your final word of the day. Jess, good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Morning. Nice to see you.
I've had pleasure meeting Paris, and would like the pleasure meeting James sometime, but thanks for inviting me to join the podcast. Just a couple of things. I've led some bigger companies in terms of, and of course, cash is king. It doesn't matter whether it's 100,000 a year or 25 million a year. A couple of things that I was just thinking about. When I've sort of managed some leaders of their profit centers, one thing that I think they benefit from is really having an internal sense and have internalized significantly the difference between direct and indirect costs, because the management of those costs are so significantly different. And you can lose your way thinking I've got my direct costs look pretty good, and then they forget about their indirect costs, and then it's like the boiling frog, right? Over time, it's just it takes you over and you're done and you're behind. So that's one thing. The other thing I mentioned is James, I really like the forecasting element, because I've talked to some financial people and you ask them for a cash flow and they go 13 weeks backwards instead of 13 weeks forward. So I say, look, I thank you for that history. Now what I'd like you to do is tell me what's going on in the future. And then one little tweak on the forecasting. I have found some business owners like to get into the nuances of how to forecast things like depreciation and amortization, but really what you want to really forecast is cash flow. It's cash flow, and then forget depreciation now. You'll worry about that when that day comes, because that's something that you can help build. And then the last thing I'll just mention, because I don't know how many people get involved with inventory, but you can create a lot of cash if you manage your inventory much more rigorously. And so anyway, I really enjoyed the podcast, and hope wish you a lot of luck. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Jess. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Chris.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you for the contribution. And so before we close, folks, I want you to know all the good stuff that you hear on the Daily Huddle every day is actually coming live to you in Alpharetta, Georgia, right here in Atlanta on August 12th. On August 12th, the hosts of the Daily Huddle will get together and have an in-person event where each pillar conversation will be addressed, from money to health and wellness, to communications and relationship, to spiritual life, and to business and leadership. All of it will be there, bundled in a fun-filled and information-packed day on the 12th of August from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there's a bonus surprise. I won't tell you about it now, so stay tuned. And all you have to do is go to thedailyhuddleevent.com to register for that event. And we look forward to seeing each and every one of you here. And as we part today, I'd love to ask both Paris and James to close out with the one thing they would have forgotten to say, unless they're saying it now.
We're gonna give our closing thought to Muhammad Ali, who says, "The man who views the world at 50 the same way he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life."
Ooh.
And we're going to transfer that quote over to the business world, and we're going to make it a little bit lighter and say, if you've grown your company and you're feeling like you have outgrown your systems, you might be right. And it might be time for you to transition to a new financial operating system. So that's all. Sometimes you just got to go move on to the next system because you've outgrown the one that you've been using, and maybe the one that you've loved and feel close to. And so that's our final thought.
Thank you. Is that a shared final thought? Or James, are you going to add something?
I'll add a CFO final thought. Warren Buffett is actually famous for saying this particular quote. He says, "You only find who is swimming naked when the tide goes out." And the wisdom behind that is, when things are seemingly going well and there aren't, proper systems, proper controls, just proper activities happening, things can seem to be running well. But once there's any adversity, then you can see who's swimming naked. So the final thought is just make sure in planning in advance to have the proper attire on, whether or not the tide comes in or goes out. We don't want this. We don't want to see you swimming naked. Okay.
At least some Speedos, for God's sake. James, thank you so much. Paris, thank you so much. So great having you here. This morning felt like an overview of the very important pillars to managing a growing business, whether your business is cracking the $10 million ceiling or just working to get its first million. So I'd love for you to consider coming back and taking the time to dive into each of those three areas, if not more. So there would be one episode about cash flow management, one episode about being profitable, and another about forecasting, and so on and so forth. So the Daily Huddle is your home. It was great to have you home.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for your participation and your contribution to the family.
Yes. Yeah, we're
So
both
we'll
grateful
close
to be
today.
here.
Good deal. So we'll
Thank
close
you.
the day with our 7 tenets plus 1. The first is to love. And the second is to laugh out loud. If you are not laughing out loud, tune in to the Daily Huddle any morning and we'll tell you a joke that's not funny. So not funny, you'll just cock your head back and laugh like crazy. We ask you not to stress less, eat mostly plant-based. And before I tell you the next one, I'll remind you that all of the tenets I'm saying, you get them all at our next event that is live. So go to thedailyhuddleevent.com and register now. But don't forget to give. Don't forget to sleep at least 7 hours and move your body, because man, if you don't move it, you will lose it. And last but not least, check your assumptions. You may think they're true, but they're only assumptions. I'll see you on the Daily Huddle again this coming Monday and every weekday. This is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Have a phenomenal weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Barrett. Thank you, Daily Huddle family.